Hey buddy, so serverless architecture. Well, that name is quite confusing, and when I have started my career, I was always thinking that serverless architecture means my code will not deployed on any server, it will be without any server. But now I know that serverless architecture doesn't mean that there won't be any server. Well, there will be server, but me as a coder, you as a programmer, we don't need to worry about the server issues, right? The scale up, scale down, any sort of that issue. I just need to focus on my business logic, complete my business requirement, and push that code to the server. And that's it. Okay, let's try to understand it with a real life example. So let's divide this into two parts. One with server architecture, second serverless architecture. Okay, now server architecture. Take an example that let's imagine that you own a car. If you own a car, you have to pay, right? You have to pay the insurance. You have to purchase that car from the company. You have to pay the toll taxes. You have to pay the service fees, right? All sort of other expenses you have to pay. So that is what the server architecture is, where you buy a server, whether you use it or you don't use it, you have to pay. That is what server architecture is. Now in serverless architecture, imagine now you have to go somewhere. You take out your phone, book a cab is outside your door, you complete your ride and you just pay for that ride. You don't have to pay for insurance, that car driver or any sort of other taxes. That is what serverless architecture is. So in serverless architecture, you just build your code, push it, and if there is any issue, that servers will take care. If there is any downtime issue, servers will take care, right? And if there is no use, no traffic on your code, your server, you don't have to pay, right? All sort of those issues are resolved in serverless architecture. Look at this serverless architecture diagram. You see this is a client that make a request and it goes to serverless function. Now for the serverless function, there is a different business logic where you are saving to the database, to the cloud or file storage. We don't care about that. So what matters for us is serverless function. So there are different serverless functions. The popular serverless functions are, one is AWS, right? AWS Lambda functions, which is provided by Amazon. Then Google function, which is provided by Google Cloud. Then Azure function, which is provided by Microsoft, right? The diagram that you see over here, you can use any sort of serverless function, and that's it. Whenever you make a request, you have to pay for that request only. You don't have to pay if your application is sitting idle. So next, when to go for this serverless architecture, what sort of application you have to what sort of application you have to choose that I need a serverless architecture? Well, so you can choose like chatbot APIs, right? Where you are creating a chatbot APIs, you can use that because you don't know, how many users can interact with your chat. It could be million, it could be 2, right? You don't know. So you don't need to worry about scale up or scale down. You just implement it in a serverless function. You don't need to worry about the performance, right? Similarly, you can use the serverless architecture for real-time image or video processing, right? Because you don't know what sort of video will be there. For example, Netflix, right? They are using serverless architecture. YouTube, right? Where huge videos are uploaded or downloaded or watched. These kind of platform you can use the serverless architecture. And third, ETL, where you are working with the ETL operations, you can use there as well, where you have to perform quite complex file, process quite complex file from one source to other. Now, the important thing is where we should not use the serverless architecture. So the serverless architecture, because that if your application is sitting idle, you don't have to pay. So let's say there was no traffic or your application was sitting idle, then suddenly there was a request and it started, then it started processing the request. So before processing the request, because that application was sleeping, now it will take a time to just wake up and then start the processing. So you have to be mindful where to use and where to not use. So if your application, if you can't afford the latency, don't use the serverless architecture. That's all for today's video. I will see you in the next video.